Picture a Dodge Dart. And if you did that right now, you're probably imagining a small, cheap, kind of boring compact car that your grandma drove to the grocery store. Something with a slant six and a bench seat and absolutely zero excitement anywhere near it. And honestly, that's a fair image for most of the Darts that Dodge ever made. But what if I told you that in 1968, Dodge pulled 80 of these little economy cars off the assembly line before they were finished, shipped them across town to a performance shop without an engine, without a hood, without fenders, just bare shells on a flatbed, and had that shop turn them into the fastest factory-delivered drag cars that any American manufacturer had ever sold. And here's the part that makes this story even crazier. One of those 80 cars, probably the most famous one, the car that legendary drag racer Dick Landy drove to win the NHRA Winter Nationals. Landy himself believed that car had burned to the ground in a fire at some point in the 70s. He thought it was gone forever, except it wasn't. Somebody found it nearly 30 years later, buried under 5 layers of paint. And the way he proved it was the real car is one of the best detective stories in muscle car history. Let's get into it. Now, to understand why Dodge would build something this unhinged, you have to understand what 1968 looked like. The superstock drag racing wars were at full boil. Yenko had 427 Camaros. Shelby had the GT500. Everybody's motto was the same: win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Chrysler's weapon was the 426 Hemi, and it was already dominating in the intermediate B-body Chargers and Coronets. But those B-bodies were heavy. The Dart, their little compact A-body, weighed a lot less. So the idea wrote itself: biggest engine, smallest car. The problem was, Chrysler corporate would not let Dodge install a 426 Hemi into a Dart at the factory. So Dodge found a workaround that was, I'll be blunt, pretty genius. They called Hurst Performance, the shifter company, and cut a deal. Dodge builds the bodies at Hamtramck, Hurst finishes them at their facility in Madison Heights, and technically the Hemi never touches the Dart on the Chrysler line. Technically. Now, here's where it gets genuinely strange. What Chrysler shipped to Hurst was not a complete car. Not even close. These were Dart GTS bodies missing the engine, transmission, exhaust, drive shaft, battery, seats. The hood and fenders weren't even on the car. No radio, no heater, no carpet, no back seat, no window cranks. There's a rumor that's floated around for decades that Chrysler might have actually installed the Hemis at the factory before shipping, and the whole bare shells thing was just the official cover. Nobody has fully nailed that down, but the official story is Hurst got empty cars and did the work. Dodge built 80 of these, coded LO23. Plymouth did a parallel program with the Barracuda Fastback, coded BO29, and the CUDA production count is still argued about constantly. Dodge Garage says 70. Some registries say 73. I've seen claims as low as 55. The Dart count is solid. The Barracuda count, pick your number and be ready to defend it. And none of these cars came with a title. Bill of sale, zero warranty, and a bright yellow sticker on the A-pillar that said this vehicle is not for use on public streets. If you drove one home, that was on you. Now, let's talk about what Hurst actually put under that fiberglass hood, because this is the part that matters, and it's the part the internet gets wrong constantly. The Street 426 Hemi in the Charger RT ran 10.25-to-1 compression with Carter AFB carbs on an inline intake. 425 horsepower, already a nasty motor. But the LO23 did not get the Street Hemi. It got the Race Hemi, and it was a completely different animal. We're talking 12.5-to-1 compression. A one-piece aluminum cross-ram intake manifold with 2 Holley 4-barrels sitting on top, one feeding each cylinder bank. And the reason that cross-ram setup is such a big deal is because each intake runner crosses over to the opposite bank, which gives the air charge a longer path to travel. That longer path builds velocity and creates a ram effect right in the RPM range where a race engine lives, basically force-feeding the cylinders at the top end. The Street Hemi's inline intake just couldn't do that. Now, on paper, Chrysler rated the Race Hemi at 425 horsepower, which was the exact same number as the Street engine, because that was the figure for NHRA classification purposes. Nobody believed that number in 1968, and nobody believes it now. The real output was north of 500 horsepower. Some sources say 535. I've seen period claims going as high as 600, though at that point it gets hard to pin down exactly. But the engine was only half of it. Hurst went after weight like it owed them money. Steel fenders and hood swapped for fiberglass in raw black gel coat. Doors dipped in nitric acid to thin the metal. Side glass swapped for thin Corning Chemcore panels, and since the window regulators weighed something, those got ripped out and replaced with seatbelt straps. You pulled a strap to raise the window. Front buckets got swapped for flat A100 van seats, because who needs bolsters when you're only going straight? Battery moved to the trunk, less weight on the nose, more ballast over the rear axle. And this is honestly my favorite detail about the whole car. The 426 Hemi is so physically wide that it did not fit inside the Dart's engine bay without modifications. So at the Hurst facility, somebody literally took a hammer to the passenger side inner fender and just beat the shock tower in until there was enough clearance to pull the valve cover off. And no two cars looked exactly the same in there. Just hammer marks and dents where somebody made it work. After all of that, the LO23 tipped the scales at right around 3,000 pounds with over 500 horsepower sitting under that fiberglass hood. In 1968, with a Dana 60 rear axle stuffed with 486 gears and either an A833 4-speed manual or a 727 TorqueFlite automatic with a high stall converter, and front disc brakes, which is actually a fun side note, the LO23 was the first Dodge package to ever include them. So what did all of that actually do on a drag strip? Off the trailer with minimal tuning, these cars were running quarter-mile times in the low 10s. Dick Landy ran a 1046 at 131 miles per hour at Orange County International Raceway in October of '68. The Gratiot Auto Supply car set the NHRA National ET record in 1970 at 1033. With real race prep, slicks, cam swaps, deeper oil pans, guys were getting into the nines. And today, some of the surviving cars with heavily built engines run 820s at 160. But those are modified, and claiming stock numbers from a modified car is how you start a fight at a Mopar meet. You'll hear this car called the fastest muscle car ever built. I'll let you argue that in the comments, but as a factory-delivered quarter-mile machine in 1968, nothing else was close. Now, the cars were meant for NHRA Superstock Class A, but Chevrolet protested they had a competing Camaro in development. So the Hemis got bumped to Class B. And then Chevy canceled their Camaro anyway, citing costs. The Mopar guys were not happy about that. Now, remember that car I mentioned at the beginning? Here's where that pays off. Dick Landy, Dandy Dick, was Dodge's top factory-backed racer. He got 2 LO23 Darts, an automatic for his teammate Bob Lambeck, and a 4-speed that Landy raced himself to win the Winter Nationals at Pomona in '68 and '69. But race cars live hard. They get passed around, modified past recognition, hit walls. At some point, Landy was told his 4-speed car burned in a fire. For nearly 30 years, he believed it was gone. Then, in 1996, a guy named Darrell Klassen bought what he thought was just a rough Hemi Dart project car. But things weren't adding up. He started sanding the paint, and under the top layer, he found silver. Under the silver, orange. Under the orange, blue. These LO23 cars were delivered in bare primer, so every paint job a racer ever put on it was still there, layered up like tree rings. Then Klassen pulled the door panels off and found Bondo filling small holes on the inside of the door. Holes where somebody had once mounted a Hemi badge and wheel well trim molding. That was a Landy thing. He always dressed his cars up just a little flashier than the competition. So Klassen starts calling Landy, and at the end of every phone call, Landy would say the same thing. "Sorry, Darrell, you don't have my car." This went on for a while, until one day, Landy finally checked the VIN, and it was his car. Not just one of 80 Hemi Darts. One of 2 Landy Hemi Darts. The car he'd been mourning for 30 years was sitting in Klassen's shop the entire time. The LO23 was a 1-year-only deal, gone from the order sheets by '69. The MSRP was $5146 in 1968, though street prices ran closer to $4,200 to $4,695, depending on your dealer. Landy got his for free, Factory Hero Perk. Today, real LO23 darts trade in the $170,000 to $200,000 range when they show up at all. The highest public sale was $302,500, a low-mileage auto with 3,799 miles. Originally, a Mr. Norm's Grand Spalding car, at MuscleCarMasters in January 2022. From under $5,000 in 1968 to over $300,000 today. And what I find most interesting about the Hemi Dart is not really the speed or even the price tag today. It's the fact that a major American automaker once looked at their little economy compact, ripped out everything that wasn't welded to the floor, dipped the doors in acid, beat the shock tower in with a hammer, stuffed a race engine into the gap, slapped a sticker on it that said you can't drive this thing on the road, and then sold it to you without a title or a warranty. That's not some hot rod shop doing a one-off build. That was a corporate engineering department that decided winning on Sunday was worth more than anything else they had going on. So here's what I want to know from you. If you had about $5,000 in 1968 and a Dodge dealer slid that no-title bill of sale across the desk toward you, would you have taken the 4-speed or the Torque Flight Auto? And would you have actually driven it on the street? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Hope you all enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching.